They wanted me so much that several of the members who were muted agreed to just not be muted. That's like, a pretty big deal. I really don't want to take like a dinner. My constitution random PS that I like. Or also snacks on the PS.
Hello. Hello. Welcome to Grown Up Storytime 148. Thank you. My name's Emily. I'm Blair. We produce Grown Up Storytime together. We have some business to tell you before we get started. The first order of business is very important. We take pictures of every performer and every host during the show and put it up on Instagram. And usually who's doing that is me and Blair, but we are hosting tonight. So I'm gonna need someone in the audience to take a picture of us, preferably, okay, that's good.
Once again?
Cool. Thank you. That was great. Also, maybe someone with a cell phone so they can airdrop it to me. You want to talk next?
Sure. Yeah, I'll say some things that we usually say. So for those of you who are just joining us, well, no, I've never said this before. For those of you who are just joining us at Grown Up Storytime, this has been our home for forever. 2007. I really should have let you tell the story. But this is our last night here. So we are going to live it up and we're going to celebrate this home and give it the send-off that it deserves. That being said, just remember, this is a live performance. And what I have realized coming back from COVID is we all got way too comfortable with screens. The screens people cannot hear you. We can. So just be mindful. You'd be surprised. You might, like if you start filling on your phone, all that stuff, that gets distracted real quick. So especially if you have to take a phone call. Crazy. Please leave. Okay. Yep, that was audience etiquette. There it is.
That's the thing I usually say.
Also, it is kind of strange to be up here for the last show at Rudyard's because I was here for the first show at Rudyard's in 2007, and I feel like I might cry a little bit now. But it's been, I don't even know. I don't even have the words. I don't really want to talk about it because I will get upset. But I made this bingo for the program. So I don't know if you may have seen it yet, but I made this bingo for the back of the program. It's a Ruds bingo. Yeah, there's no prizes or anything. Just let us know if you get it. I got almost a blackout bingo, which is pretty cool. Also, we want to say hi to anyone watching us on the stream. There's a camera here. Okay, on 3, we'll go, hi everyone at home. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Hi everyone at home!
There's 5 of them.
And we love them just as much.
Yes.
What else? We're hosting too, so if we forget stuff, we can
Exactly.
just...
We're just gonna keep this going.
Yeah. Should we just start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna just start with some stories. And we're gonna start with the first one is Angie Goes to Thailand, written by, oh gosh. Whoa. Hello. There it is. Hey, Angie Goes to Thailand, written by Stacey Thompson and read by Brittany Bush.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. Let's see how I can do this. All right, nearsighted. All right. In the fall of 2009, I studied abroad at Thammasat University in Bangkok, Thailand. I spent the weekends visiting the northern mountains near Chiang Mai or lazy holidays on the southern islands. I traveled regionally to Cambodia, Laos, and Malaysia. I made friends with whom I'm still in contact with today. To say that Thailand changed my life would be an understatement, but perhaps no one had a greater adventure in Thailand than my mother. When my parents first approved my request to spend a semester in Southeast Asia, I was in shock. My dad is the kind of guy who doesn't keep his passport up to date, and his idea of an exotic vacation is an all-inclusive stay at the Hard Rock Hotel in Cancun. He says things like, "America is the best country in the world. Why would you ever want to leave?" In preparation for an ethnocentric response from my parents, I had created a PowerPoint presentation for them about the benefits of studying abroad and highlighted my top 3 destinations: Budapest, Hungary, Stellenbosch, South Africa, and Bangkok, Thailand. Since we have family in Germany, I assumed that my parents would automatically select Hungary as the nearest country to our relatives. Truthfully, I was unsure whether they would let me go anywhere at all. My dad was a big fan of the 2008 movie Taken, where a retired CIA agent travels across Europe looking for his kidnapped daughter. I'm pretty sure my dad believed that all-female solo travel was sure to end in a kidnapping or an arrest, like the 98 drama Broke Down Palace, where 2 teenage girls are arrested in Thailand for unknowingly attempting to smuggle drugs across the border for a handsome stranger. To my parents, who did not attend college, studying abroad, was born and raised in Germany for the first part of her life, must have convinced him to let me go. I wondered fervently, why Thailand? But I didn't want to ask too many questions for fear of them retracting their approval. Soon after, the arrangements were made, I registered for classes, booked a flight, and traveled across the world alone for the first time. About halfway through my stay in late October, I had a terrible case of food poisoning. After 6 hours of being unable to keep down even a sip of water, I called a 3 a.m. taxi to the nearest hospital. I sent a text to my parents about what was happening and told them the name of the hospital in Bangkok where I was headed. The ER staff hooked me up to an IV and told me I'd stay there until my symptoms improved. Within an hour, a nurse came to me with a hospital phone telling me that I had a phone call. How in the world did someone find a number to this hospital, I wondered to myself. Even if they did manage to find the hospital number, how did they get in touch with someone in the right department who actually knew who and where I was? Could this be my dad, living out his dreams of the Liam Neeson coming to my rescue? But no, it was my mother. She just wanted to check on me and somehow managed to navigate the Thai hospital phone system. After I was released from the hospital, my mom demanded that she needed to come and visit me. She declared that she would come for 2 weeks and stay through Thanksgiving. She insisted that I shouldn't spend Thanksgiving alone without family. 2 weeks later, I found myself in the taxi at the Suvarnabhumi Airport, I think that's how you pronounce it, to pick up my mom and bring her to my apartment. When I introduced her to my friends back at the apartment, I was amused to hear her introduce herself, saying, "You can call me Angie." My mom's name is Angela, and she has never used the nickname Angie before. I usually just called her Mom, but after she introduced herself with her new moniker, she suggested that I also call her Angie when we were with other people. Okay, Angie. Angie did prove to be more fun than Angela was back home. Angie ate spicy food and went to hookah bars. Angie was willing to ride on the back of a motor taxi through the crazy Bangkok traffic. Angie ate street food with a stick and pet tigers at the infamous Tiger Temple. Angie learned to use the squatty potty without complaint. And she went bar hopping with me down the former backpacker haven of Khao Sun Road. Maybe I would like Angie after all. Thailand operates as primarily a cash society, or at least it did when I was there in 2009. Angie had exchanged over $1,000 into Thai baht ahead of time, even though I told her that the ATMs worked just fine in Bangkok. When she arrived, she gave me all her cash and refused to touch it for the rest of the trip. Even when she wanted coffee for an exact amount that was printed on a poster in standard Arabic numbers, Angie still refused to participate in any kind of money exchange. I don't think she was scared of interacting with the people exactly. Angie seemed to actually be afraid of the money. One day, I decided that I'd take Angie to hike a 10-tier waterfall outside the city. My parents had never really taken me hiking or camping as a child, but I thought maybe Angie might like hiking. Angie was not in the best physical shape, but we went slow and the hike wasn't too steep until the last couple tiers when we had to climb up rocks on the side of the waterfall to reach the next level. At the top, the water was a glimmering pool of gently flowing water, swirling around large rocks and covered with shade from branching banyan trees. The pool was also home to several species of birds, fish, and tree mammals. Immediately, I swam through the water to sit on one of the large rocks in the middle of the pool. Angie, more hesitant, sat on the side of the pool. "There are monkeys!" Angie exclaimed with wide eyes and childlike excitement. "Will they attack me?" "Just leave them alone," I assured her, "and they won't bother you." I put my sunglasses over my face and returned to sunbathing on the rock. Not even 5 minutes later, Angie disturbed me again. "Stacy!" Angie hissed in a not-so-quiet whisper. "The monkeys are trying to attack me!" I sat up to find Angie squatting in the face of 3 small macaque monkeys with her camera less than 1 foot from their faces. The monkeys were, in fact, baring their teeth and threatening to pounce if Angie didn't back down. She stood still as if the monkeys might forget she was there if she didn't move for long enough. "Just back away slowly," I called to her from across the pool. "I told you to leave them alone." Angie tried to tiptoe away from the monkeys quietly, but not before I heard her camera shutter click twice more, getting a couple of last shots of the monkeys. The largest macaque let out a loud hiss and stepped forward toward Angie. At that point, Angie started to run. "We have to leave now!" she shouted back at me as I saw her head disappear down the edge of the waterfall path. I could not be more annoyed. I put my shoes back on and scrambled down the 10th tier of the waterfall behind her. After 2 hours of climbing up the waterfall, we were able to enjoy the destination for only 10 minutes before Angie's amateur photography conquest caused our exile from the waterfall paradise. For the rest of the walk down, Angie chattered on about how aggressive the monkeys were. On Angie's last weekend in Thailand, we were visiting the different temples in downtown Bangkok. Angie moved slowly through each wat to carefully photograph the individual ornate sculptures and elaborate paintings that were plated in gold throughout. Being a devout Catholic, Angie had never seen so many Buddha statues in her life, and she was mesmerized by the temple decor. Tired from a day of walking through the different temple grounds, we caught a taxi to get a late lunch in another part of the city. After I had paid the taxi driver and joined Angie on the sidewalk, she let out a sharp yelp and screamed, "Ah, my camera! I left it in the taxi!" She insisted that I go find the taxi and retrieve the camera. I looked down the street littered with dozens of taxis that appeared identical to one another. Traffic was crawling toward a crowded stoplight at the end of the street, so I started working my way down the line. I knocked on windows, peered in back seats, and weaved between the different lanes of taxis. No camera. I was afraid to return to Angie empty-handed, so I even turned the corner to look in the windows of taxis that had perhaps turned from our street. Still, I could not find the camera. That night, Angie cried and cried. All of her photos of Thailand were gone. The temples, the monkeys, the bareback elephant ride, the tiger temple, the floating market, the rooftop bars, the water taxis, the Buddhist monks, the tuk-tuks, gone. Since she was about to leave in just 48 hours, there wasn't possibly time for her to revisit her favorite landmarks to retake the photos. Angie was devastated. She sulked her last couple of days before she retreated back to the United States, where I would rejoin her in a month when my semester finished. Angie's adventure in Thailand ended unceremoniously, and she returned to the U.S. again as Angela, without any photos to show her friends of her exotic activities. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then my mother lost 1,000,000 words to describe her once-in-a-lifetime visit to Thailand, and truly, probably the only time she will ever visit anywhere in the Asian continent. Without all the pictures, our trip memories will forever be tinted in rose. She won't remember the times I refused to smile in the photos or rolled my eyes on camera. She won't remember the trash that littered the sides of the Bangkok streets. The stories we tell from memory are the best possible versions. In some ways, Angie's visit to Thailand is a secret that she and I keep, in the way that only a mother and daughter can. My semester in Thailand was just the beginning of my journey in worldwide travel. But for Angie, that trip to visit me in Thailand was her greatest adventure. I may never know how she convinced my father to let me and her go to Thailand, but I will be forever grateful for the time I met Angie and saw her live her most adventurous life. If I'm lucky, maybe one day Angie and I will meet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Brittany's been with us from the beginning also. She was probably back here in 2007, way back when. I realized we were sort of flustered at the beginning and we sort of forgot to tell you what Grown Up Storytime is, because maybe there's people here who this is their first time. Is there anyone here for the first time? Make some noise, I can't see you. Okay, so yeah, cool. Here's what Grown Up Storytime is. People send us stories, we read through them, and we pick 6 or 7 to do, and if they need a little workshopping, we workshop them, and then we assign them to readers like Brittany, and everyone else you'll see up here tonight. And they have a few days, like our goal is a week, that never happens, but usually like 3 to 4 days to kind of prepare and get ready, and then they show up here and tell the story for you. So if you have a story that you've been banging around and think you might want to write it down, you can send it to us. We really, really, truly do love working on these stories with y'all. It's not bullshit, we really do. So email us, it's grownupstorytimehouston@gmail.com. We also hope to get back to some workshops. We used to do regular writing and reading workshops before the pandemic, so we're hoping to get back on that. You can also just email the same address if you want to get on the email address for workshops whenever we get those back up and running. So I think that's the spiel that I'm going to do for now. We'll let Blair do some more spieling later. We'll move on to the next story. It is called The Kiss of Gay Death. Written by Sarah Bellum-Mental, and it's read by someone who wants to remain anonymous.
Before I read, I would like to ask a favor of the audience. If you can take your phone out, just for this one moment, and turn on your flashlight, because being up here, we can't see your beautiful faces, but you've all had such a major impact on Grown Up Storytime that I think for once, the host should see who you are. So if I can please have your lights, if you can turn them on, just for one moment and point them towards me.
Can you get a picture from the stage looking out?
Oh.
Thank you so much. Okay, put them away, don't look at them again. The Kiss of Gay Death by Sarah Bellum-Mental. I was at a kink event happening on the east side of Houston. It was the first night of Fixation, which focuses on BDSM and all of the things out of the vanilla world of sexuality. I came there in a clingy dress, black forest green with gold jewels replicating and accentuating my hourglass curves. It was crowded, and I entered the space. Then I saw her, beauty incarnate. A Venus woman that called to all my girl-loving urges I have within me. She had on the disguise of a bunny rabbit costume. wearing a white corset with a white fluffy bunny tail I wanted so badly to squeeze. She was beauty and femininity all wrapped up in one. This woman was my white rabbit to follow down the whole of my sexuality. Her skin was rich ebony, and she had on glasses. With her was a woman I took as her girlfriend. A woman like her couldn't be accounted for, not having someone be with her. I don't know how I ended up talking to her, but I was extremely awkward. I stood with her out in the crowd as we watched what was happening. There was a flogging while Emily Snow, a fetish model hosting the event, held the woman in between her breasts. The woman flogged, hiked up her dress, and bared her ass to them. Emily had her in her tits, and I looked over at the girl dressed as a bunny. I tried to gauge whether she was aroused by it or if it was just me. Her friend took turns paddling people on the ass with her paddle. During the expedition of walking around the tiny space, I had a man who stuck to me. He started talking to me about kinks, and I couldn't get rid of him from that point on. I'm sure my white rabbit thought he was my boyfriend, but he was just a man I couldn't shake. What is it about kink events that people want to know everything you're into? Just because now I'm proclaimed as kinky, because I'm here just like you are here, makes them think that I will divulge all my secrets. Yes, if you whisper from behind and your body comes to cut mine, I will become ticklish for that one instant. Am I submissive? Yes. No. And it depends, and absolutely not. And sometimes. I think it's a man's wet dream to have a woman crawling up to him, staring up, and waiting to be told what to do. To be spanked for being a bad girl, I responded, I'm not in a kink box. And if your kink does not align with mine, that's okay. People get off on different things. But I'm not a piece to be battered and sold meat. I think that's why I didn't pursue the girl in the white rabbit. At one moment when she left with her girlfriend, I was left alone with a man who wanted to figure out what I was, and I told him I was not interested in him. I was interested in her, my white rabbit. He said just for me to kiss her. Well, for that matter, ask her for a kiss. By the way, that's such dude logic. Just do it. It's just my notes. I think that's why I didn't pursue the girl in the white rabbit. At one moment, when she left with her girlfriend, I was, excuse me, I lost my place. I've chosen the wrong girls for most of my life. They aren't bisexuals like me, but incredibly straight. When the show was coming to an end, we all stood together, my white rabbit, girlfriend, and guy I couldn't dump, stood together in a circle. Somehow I must have acted awkward enough to give my crush maybe a hint I was into her. The man who was attached to me blurted out, I wanted my white rabbit to kiss me. She leaned forward and kissed me on the cheek. That kiss may have been dubbed the kiss of gay death. It was one of those friendly ones where you're like, you're cute, but no. Maybe I misread it wrong, but listening to their conversation, both my white rabbit and her girlfriend were into men more than women. They discussed blowjobs, and I mentioned how I thought that two women were an item, and they laughed so hard at that statement. It's that laugh that straight people make when you mix up girls' fluid sexuality, that flirting they do without ever wanting more. We shifted outside to the humid Houston air. Everyone was smoking pot, and they offered a joint to me, and I passed. I'm not a fan of drugs, since I'm already a high enough person without the additives. We're shifting to leave, and my white rabbit's girlfriend stood between her and me as a pussy block. I wanted so desperately to ask for her number, to see her again, to be as close to her body. I could feel the warmth of it also when she kissed me. to stare at her, make the words out of the beauty I saw within her. I needed to bear witness to my white rabbit's laughter being like musical wind chimes, shifting in the breeze just for me. Instead, I allowed the gay kiss of death stays as a reminder. I don't choose the right girls. And my white rabbit went the other way as I didn't fall down the hole to find her and myself. I wanted to pinch that bunny tail so bad as it flopped goodbye in the humidity-dense Houston night. I was Alice, and she was my white rabbit, and we were out of time. Thank you so much.
Y'all give it up for definitely anonymous. I definitely don't know who that person is. Anonymous. She's fucking great. So I'm going to talk to y'all about something that we got literally just in time for the final show here. We have merch. What? Today? Yes, I picked it up yesterday. We have merch. It's in the back. One of the fine pieces of merch is this t-shirt that is cut off by my cute romper jumper thing. But it says, fuck, kindness, something else. It's a very cool shirt. It's very soft. I'm giving you product review right now. It's very soft, fits well. This is small. Plenty of room. There it is. Oh, that is literally my parent in the back. Shut up. Thank you, Helen. You're the best. Okay, so that's a t-shirt. You want to bring up the tote bag? Bring up the tote bag. We got a tote bag, y'all. Where's the tote? Oh, it's pink, but also like olive and cool. Here's prices on those because shit's expensive these days. I don't know if you've noticed, but we are going 18 on those tote bags and 25 for a shirt. It says Grown Up Storytime, which is a Houston institution, so you can wear it out of town and be real cool. Real cool. That's merch. Yep, that's all I'm going to talk about. We're going to get this next story up. So far, we've had back-to-back readers, at least who are veterans of the craft. But the next reader, he's a triple threat, y'all. He's one of them. He's one half of Ep and Rager, who's been really like great partners with us during the pandemic, helping us to stream stuff. If you weren't here for the Snake Diaspora Day pageant, we technically have some of it still on our Instagram. You could go back and look at it because it still makes me giggle. But let's also this story, I have to give a shout out to Ryan Bruce. Thank you so much for bearing with Patience and me as your writer collaborator. If you want to talk about the writing collaboration process, he can give you a very honest review. This one's great though. It's Turkey Tea. It's written by Ryan Bruce and read by Connor Clifton.
Hello. Before I start, I just want to say that my first time ever performing in Houston was on this stage at a Grown Up Storytime about 10 years ago. Yeah. I have met people that will likely be in my wedding party in this room. And if there's one thing I can say about my experience with Grown Up Storytime, it's that you should support the arts, you should go to the arts, you should interact and participate in the arts, because you never know who you're going to influence, inspire, collaborate with, or become very good friends with. Emily and Blair are still very much a part of my life, and I love them very much. So thank you for asking me to be a part of this show. I deeply appreciate it. You guys are the best. All right. And I heard the complaints about Snake Diaspora Day, so you guys come talk to me later. All right. Turkey Tea. The following is a small set of misadventures from my first few months of an 18-month stay at a sober house. All names are changed for obvious reasons. First up, the man in charge, the executive director of The House, Billy Beeman. Billy was a backwoods, come up from nothing at all, could be 35, could be 65-year-old black man. He had the confidence and musicality of a Baptist preacher, which he was. He had a misinformed right hand, which he had the pendulum swing up to shake yours. Billy loved hookers. The man contained multitudes. About 2 months into my stay, Billy hit us with a new responsibility apart from the standard nightly chores. He told us, "You boys are going to put together a Thanksgiving luncheon. Your mothers and fathers will be invited. Any children you have will be invited. All the sober folk from around Houston will be invited. You boys are going to shop for the food, prep the food, and serve the food. You boys are going to familiarize yourself with the meaning of service work." I was incredulous. For some perspective, when Billy told us about the luncheon, there were 11 of us sitting around the dining room table for our weekly wrap-up. To my right was James. James with the posture and general world outlook of Eeyore. James, who would later go to jail for burning down his sister's house. James, who had been busted trying to steal an airplane, believed salamanders could not be killed by fire and intended to level up to become a breatharian and live only off of air. To my left was Jeff. Jeff was 18 years old and looked like he must have had his bar mitzvah within a calendar year. The night before, he had been caught trying to fit the dust mop into a mop bucket. In case it's been a little while since your last spring cleaning, a mop bucket is roughly the size of a bucket. Meanwhile, the head of a dust mop is roughly the length of this mic stand, i.e., that shit don't fit! These fucking guys were going to be responsible for feeding 200 people? I asked Billy afterwards how he'd have gone in the past. He said, "Mr. Bruce, we've been putting on these luncheons for almost 10 years now. It's gotten bigger and better every year. This year will be no different. Darren over in the Blue House is planning to fry 8 birds this year." Billy saved my life. He taught me that nothing so much ensures immunity from the next drink as intensive work with another alcoholic. He also taught me that when you get sober, you will no longer be inclined to walk through waist-deep, water moccasin-infested hurricane water for $20 worth of yellow crack. Now, granted, I didn't have that inclination before, but I was relieved he got that sorted out for himself. I was just a garden variety alcoholic. I was 23 years old and still very much a kid, but I was already getting the shakes in the morning, and I threw up blood and bile if I went more than 24 hours without alcohol. I needed the hard reset. The sober house was the next step after a month-long stay in rehab. It was just 35 to 40 sober dudes spread across the campus of one halfway house and 6 three-quarter houses. Each man with about 90% relapse rate in their first year of sobriety, praying they were part of the lucky 10%. The day after Billy let us know about the luncheon, I met up with one of my best friends at the halfway house, Don Washington. I asked him what he was planning to make for the luncheon. "Deviled eggs, baby! I love them little bitches. Food, classy." Don came from a rich family, but Don was 32 years old and had only ever waited tables, ate Xanax, and snorted blow. Before I left for work one day, Don asked me, "Hey man, I just got this new iPhone. Can you show me how to get to the porn?" Now, mind you, this is 2011. Porn was probably 2/3 of the internet by then. I told him, sure, why not? But he wanted to be clear. They have weird stuff though, right? 'Cause I'm into weird stuff. Seeing a prime opportunity to fuck with the man who seemed to have grown up mid-Dust Bowl, I started listing perversions. Like, blood and period sex? Nope, he said. Like, bestiality? Nope, he said. Like, 2 girls, 1 cup, but where the cups are also made of shit and the girls aren't girls, they're also shit, but plot twist, the shit isn't shit, it's pudding, and your lovely, lovely mother is there for some reason, somehow both appalled and intrigued. I may have had the details off on exactly what I said, but I swear on my life, that man looked me in the eyes and said, "No, I said weird stuff." I got him sorted and went off to work. He was the happiest I'd seen him when I got home that night. That poor phone. I loved my time at the sober house. There was structure. My body was thankful not to have to process a liter of vodka a day. It was a bizarre time, don't get me wrong. I watched some only child-ass 15-day sober motherfucker play frisbee with himself for hours on a sober retreat. He relapsed and was kicked out 2 days later. I met a man who very confidently told me that when in Rome, I needed to be with the Romans. He sold his van for cocaine within the month. But some of us hurt in just the right way. We wanted the pain to stop. So we let ourselves be known, to form relationships with someone other than Jim Beam, to get gut level honest. I made friends more easily than I ever have in my life. These people seem to understand excess. They seem to understand that life is such a goddamn Hobbesian Kafka-esque clusterfuck. Fucking so what if our water bottles were full of vodka? But we learned to take responsibility. We learned to feel our feelings instead of drown them. We learned all sorts of tremendously adult and useful lessons about how to deal with the world on its terms. We learned some, let's say, more frivolous things as well, such as if you got on the chat roulette in the early 2010s, there isn't much roulette involved. The other party's going to show you the penis. Also, if a house manager asks 1,000 residents for a urine sample for drug testing, one of them is bound to take it personally, flop his little penis around in the common area, and dare the manager to come get the urine analysis himself if he wanted it so bad. Also, if you end up in a particularly bored and hardened group of criminals in a Harris County jail, you might end up making the choice to shave a domino down in the shape of a coffin, slice open the shaft of your penis, insert that domino into your penis, sew up your penis, and forever have a coffin penis. I guess a lot of these frivolous lessons concern penises. But back to the luncheon, I remember the 2 weeks before were chaos. The usual evening chores were checked with an elevated intensity. Mr. Don Washington, you have not cleaned the bathroom in the White House, Mr. Billy Beeman said. It just like that, drawing out Don's first name and rushing through his last name. Yes, sir, I did. Mr. Don Washington, I have to tell you, you may think, he loved a pregnant pause, you may think that you cleaned the White House. But all your families will be here in just 2 weeks, and we don't want them to think you found your way into a flop house. Not to mention, the White House is where I bring women to visit who are not my wife. The weekend before the luncheon, I went to Chipotle with one of my other good friends at the house, Brian Carlos. He was a year sober, living in one of the three-quarter houses. He ran into an old friend from pre-sobriety days while we were out. Brian was nervous. The old friend spotted Brian and asked, "Hey man, how are things?" "Oh, living the dream, living the dream." They chatted for a while longer while Brian made stuff up about how his life was going great. The old friend parted. We finished our meal and walked to the car in silence. Brian went to start the car, and in the most dejected voice I've ever heard, Brian said, "He knows I'm not living the dream." The shopping was done. The ovens at the various houses were on a schedule, and Darren was brining the turkeys in 8 separate Gatorade coolers. I just ended up making deviled eggs with Don, his phone no longer working. With us was Jonathan Thibodeau. He didn't like me that much. I was somber and haughty and pretentious, and I used words like somber and haughty and pretentious. Whereas Jonathan was from the swamps of Louisiana. His aunt raised him. He put up through hell. He OD'd in the middle of his high school cafeteria, among other things, on me. He was just coming to grips with just how badly he treated her. He called her Auntie, like Auntie Beverly. He was 100% an Auntie's boy. The night before the luncheon, I had to admit, it was coming together. Most of us pulled an all-nighter, pitching in where we could. Jeff, the dust mop guy, made green beans. James, the breatharian, made nothing for obvious reasons. The tents were put up, the tables laid out, and guests started arriving. Drinks were a bit of an afterthought. Don threw some tea bags into the coolers and set them out for guests. And wouldn't you know it, it was a goddamn lovely experience. It was chaotic, but manageable. They brought in a guest speaker, a D-level celebrity with some 20 years sober. Families sat together, loving one another, healing. I sat with my family, my 13-year-old brother's head spinning. He did not understand the mechanics of a coffin dick. We had our best hour together in years. My mom took a small sip from her tea, made a face like she stumbled on Don's internet history, and said, "This tea isn't right." I offered to get her a new one and set off to do just that. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I got to the tea cooler, my heart stopped a little bit. Oh no. These are the same coolers that Darren brined the turkeys in. Surely not. Don, get over here. What's up, bro? Did you rinse these out before you made the tea? Like all the way? What? No. There was already tea in them. I just threw a couple extra tea bags in there to make sure they were strong enough. We realized that the tea was not brewed in water, but a post-brine turkey solution. Having not been a part of prepping the turkeys myself, I had to look at the train wreck. What was in the cooler? There were oranges and rosemary. Okay, not too bad. Bay leaves and whole garlic cloves. Okay, yikes, that's good. But what really put it over the top was the bits of floating raw turkey skins. Not good. Jonathan Thibodeau caught wind of what was going on. The poor guy had tears of anger in his eyes. Woo! My auntie drank 3 glasses of that tea there. She was talking about how good it tasted. Who knows what's in there? She could get sick. Why you not let this cool on? The rest of the night was a bit of a blur, just a few flashes. Billy apologizing to anyone who would listen, Don quite literally rolling on the floor laughing, Jonathan steaming mad as he served pumpkin pie to strangers. It was a culmination for me. All these characters converging, everyone fed and happy, some of us furiously Googling salmonella, and every person there sober. Maybe it sounds a bit trite to say, but amidst all the shenanigans, that was the night that I felt my life might really be on a different path, that I wasn't just biding my time until my next drink. The next day, Billy gave us a talking to of some kind. Maybe we had extra chores, who knows, who cares. The night before gave us turkey tea. Billy Beeman died of a brain tumor a few years ago. His wife and mistress were both at the funeral. Don Washington is still sober, still off waiting table. Jonathan Thibodeau and I were roommates for years after leaving the halfway house. He's now one of my best friends. Brian, he knows I'm not living the dream, Caros, relapsed and died. The other residents fall somewhere in between being my best friend and dying. One even managed to do both. As heavy as my time was there, as heavy as life was, is, and will continue to be, I will always have turkey tea.
Thank you, Connor, and thank you, Ryan, for sharing that story with us. Really good writer, really good reader, really good to have y'all both with us. As we get ready to move to a different venue, it's sort of been a natural time for reflection on how Grown Up Storytime started and the times that we've had here. And Grown Up Storytime was really scrappy back in the day. Like, we're still scrappy, but we were like 100 times more scrappier back then. And we wouldn't be here today if some people hadn't really taken a chance on Grown Up Storytime. You know, this is a music venue. This is like a punk rock metal music venue. And they didn't have to have us. And they did. And they did for a long time. And without that support, we wouldn't be here today. We just wouldn't be here today. So the next person who is reading a story is one of the people that took a chance on us back in the day. She is the former owner of Rudyard's, and I love her a lot, and Grown Up Storytime owes a lot to her, so we're really glad that she's here with us tonight. She's going to read Whiskey Woman. It's written by Kathy Neff, and please welcome Lilia Rogers.
I can't see anyone. Maybe I need to. So, in the year 2021, I began to drink whiskey. It happened one late afternoon when I found myself at a local dive bar near my home with my son Michael, a veteran bartender of 25 plus years. I told him that I wanted to learn to drink whiskey, whereupon he pushed his glass of Jim Beam to me. The smell of the dark, gold brown liquid intrigued me. Put to my lips, it tingled. Swallowing just the smallest sip, it felt smooth and pleasant going down, warm, sometimes hot. As one who thrives on learning the story behind things, I listened raptly as he explained the types of grains that whiskey is made from: corn, rye, barley, or wheat, which led to further research on my own, where I found the different types of whiskey that exist: Irish, Scotch, Canadian, bourbon, Tennessee, blended, and many more. That and how the drink is made by mashing, fermenting, distilling, and aging. Filled with curiosity, I decided to begin a whiskey adventure. So, whiskey. Step 1, mashing. Quote, a mash in the world of whiskey refers to the mixture of grain, water, and yeast that is initially fermented to produce alcohol. Unquote. Margaret Vanderberg from Lifestyle. Step 1. Step 1 in the whiskey making process sounds suspiciously like the word smashed, which I suspect makes some folks worried about newbie whiskey drinkers. Do they know the power of the liquid that they drink? Will they absolutely recognize tipsy before they slide into the drunken state known as smashed? Should we trust them? I expected some shyness on my part as I stood at the threshold of learning how to drink whiskey, but I wasn't prepared for a series of awkward moments I experienced repeatedly when I ordered a drink. I'll have a single Jim Beam, neat, with a glass of ice water on the side, please. A pause. Silence. A long side-eye. Neat? Yes, neat. On another night, I'm out with my beach blonde friend in a small college town at a restaurant where retired professors gather. I'm sporting natural silver mane. I inherited from my dad, whose locks turned from black to white at the age of 30. So I ordered a Maker's Mark, neat, and the server rolled his eyes. Getting the drink takes so long that I began to wonder if the management is discussing whether they allow a whiskey neat at the establishment at all. Soon, a different server arrives and enthusiastically brings the drink to my friend, saying, "This must be for you." "No," my friend replies. "Oh," says the server as she hands over the drink to me without a word. "Is there a bias against a woman of a certain age on a whiskey adventure? Would a man experience the same scenario?" As the subtle looks and having to order twice continued, I was fuming, talking with anyone who would listen, seeking to validate the subtle and not so subtle judgments that took the fun out of my adventure. Is this what comes from living in Riverside, California? Whiskey. Step 2, fermenting. Quote, ferment, noun. 1, agitation and excitement among a group of people, typically concerning major change. Unquote. Oxford Dictionary. Step 2 in the whiskey process is a verb in which the grain undergoes the process of fermentation. Was I experiencing the noun? Agitation and excitement among assorted persons concerned that I was taking up whiskey drinking? Who cares? This became the question I would put to myself. Why do I care? Undeterred, I continued my adventure, setting out to meet Jack Daniels, Evan Williams, Jim Beam, Johnny Walker, confidently ordering whiskey neat wherever I went. In response to the question, who cares, I made a conscious decision, to make light of judgments, real or imagined, and focus on enjoying whiskey and conversation. The whiskey drinkers I've chatted up seem to enjoy origin stories that follow their brand. As I have become more experienced, chances are I have tasted a whiskey they mention, or I recognize the purple bag it comes in. The one with the gold cord and the monogrammed red crown atop the fancy pillow. The story behind that brand, Crown Royal, is both historical and also a great example of good marketing. In 1939, a Canadian spirits entrepreneur got word that King George VI and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, would be visiting Canada, the only reigning monarchs at the time to do so. And he crafted a whiskey blend made for royalty. Trialing more than 600 blends, he landed on a final product comprised of 50 whiskeys and dubbed exquisitely smooth. The end product, Crown Royal, still reigns among the top shelf whiskeys, selling over 8 million cases last year. Whiskey. Step 3, distilling. The original meaning of distill comes from the process of making alcohol, but eventually it came to mean any process in which the essence of something is revealed. Unquote. Vocabulary.com. Step 3, the distilling process, causes the whiskey to froth and bubble, pulling out this and that in order to create a stronger alcohol product. Am I being distilled in my process? What essence is being revealed about me in this whiskey experiment? As my research in practicum continued, this question returned to my thoughts repeatedly. I took inventory. Number 1, I am a new widow, but no amount of drinking will make me forget that fact. Number 2, I am about to turn 70, which sounds strange when I say it because I feel like Rose on the Titanic when at 80 years old she looks in the mirror and sees the younger self that still lives within her looking back. I'll admit that the number feels strange, but that Rose Kathy inside says, nah, it's just a number. Number 3, I have no real experience with alcohol in my history. This fact surprises me at first, but it certainly explains my curiosity. The initial hurdles I encountered required pushback in order to keep going. Is this my distillation to exercise muscles that my easygoing self doesn't bother to do? In a way, each time I order a drink my way, I draw a line in the sand. Who cares? I do. Whiskey, step 4, aging. Quote, aging is what transforms the clear, distilled spirit into a much-loved amber elixir, loaded with flavor and intense complexity. Unquote. Compass Longview. Step 4 in the whiskey process places emphasis on the quality of aging. New barrel versus used barrel. Barrels burned over wood coals, barrels with bare wood unburned. Like seasoned cooks, each brand swears by its own recipe. Each whiskey lover seeks the unique taste resulting from that recipe. Many makers of whiskey claim that the proof is in the aging, and it's the same for me. Aging does not mean less than or weak. Aging can mean engendering a raise your glass, kick-ass attitude. Oh yeah. Age transforms my clear, distilled spirit into a new elixir, more intense and complex. Am I chasing whiskey or chasing truth? The jury is still out. I'll take truth with whiskey and make it a double. Neat.
guys. Y'all love that story. Not only because I know Emily got a chance to express gratitude, I do as well. I have not been with Grown Up Storytime since the very beginning, like Emily. I found out about it on LiveJournal. I wasn't even old enough to come to Ruds, but yet I knew shit that was going on with the U of H theater kids and was like, that looks cool. Just big thanks, not just to Lilia. I am without drink, but I did want to raise a glass. And Emily, actually, can you just come up and say, I wanna do something real quick because what over there again, reflecting. We're reflecting. It's a reflection time. There's another woman who is not with us tonight. She is on your bingo card, though. I wanted to raise a glass to Punk Rock Stacy. See, this is where I get to cry. Yeah, go. Just keep it on the low huddle. But she also was super supportive. She would bartend. She was booking things. She was making sure we were taken care of. She is no longer with us, but other than in spirit. So, cheers to Stacy. Also, she's. This is the only. See, I don't get blackout on the bingo. I only get this row. And I was like, Stacy's in it. I'll take it. Also on your program is a QR code. Bye, Stacy. Thank you. Oh, yeah, all right. Let's share it again. Yeah. Do you want me to dismiss you? Because we're about to talk about QR codes. Okay, let's do it. Also on your program, look at that handsome QR code on the front. So cute, so workable. What does it do, you ask, if you're not already doing it, which is kind of okay with me at this time. It does take us to our YouTube channel, where I keep thinking we have enough subscribers, and then I get to Storytime Day, and I'm like, nope. So we are so shy of 1,000. If we get 1,000, not only does it make it much easier for us to stream, but we will, I don't know, it's just a good thing. YouTube is just like, come on, 1,000, get there, let's do it. I'm like, QR code, we're going to keep putting it on the program until we get there. But also, you can find us on social media. Grown Up Storytime is where you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook. If you're not following us, that's going to be the best place to figure out where we are going forward. But also, you can find out about when we have workshops, which that's really on me, but I just want us to get there, and then we will do them. In the meantime, yes, please send your stories in, because as all the people know, we will help you tell your story, so you can be as cool as the people up here. Okay, lots of coolness. Our next story. Ghost writers that I recognize. Okay. Dear Mrs. Talvidal, oh my God, nope, taking that again. All right. Yeah, that was inexcusable. Dear Mrs. Tavidari, written by Allison Mitchell, read by Christina Brown. It's just my parents. Dear Mrs. Tavildari, first and foremost, thank you for understanding me in time and a context when almost no one could, not even myself. At a well-to-do, all-girls Catholic school in the center of New Orleans, right before and right after one of the most devastating hurricanes hit the U.S. in modern times, I will always love and feel indebted to you for having taught me geometry. You grew up weird too. You had loss, you had abuse, you knew what it looked like, what it sounded like, how it coped. You had seen suicide, and we were wrapped in privilege and pleasantries only. I would not consciously know any of this until my 30s, but you knew it then when I was just 15 years old and terrified, and so very numb, and when I needed it. I can't help but think that had you not invited my real life to emerge, I wouldn't be alive today. I was suffocating in lies and performance. Is it the eyes, the gait, the slouch, the sleeping in class, the self-deprecating humor, the lack of peers and heavy posits in class? What tells you a child is being abused in a context where you don't look for that? It's not underprivileged, it's not at risk, it's not underfunded, it's private and expensive. How do you know what's happening to the child when even the child does not know? You did. Thank you. And this language of knowing that isn't verbal goes further. We don't speak directly about what's going on, yet you know how to throw me bones, how to give me slack without ever touching my shame directly. How do you know how to do this? Why does no one else speak this? I kept a 98 average, for which you let me sleep all through class. I never overtly had to tell you that I was being kept awake until 3 a.m. by a raging alcoholic, and for that I was exhausted. I hated math, and I tried so hard for you. I give all that credit solely to the fact that I had felt seen for the first time in public, in a time where I was desperately trying not to be seen. I never touched the geometry again. You caught me off guard. I was naked. I hated it, and I couldn't give it up either. You became my tutor. Any excuse to be with you, I would find or create. Once I felt seen, I couldn't ever go back into hiding, which was not only an inclination, but a primal instinct well set in its ways by the time we met. It's likely you either saved my life, or at minimum any notion of integrity. Let's say both. I had 2 very serious and hospitalized suicide attempts before age 16. This is all 2004. 2 years later, a hurricane would come. I would become a public orphan during that time. I say public because I was always orphaned, but our dear friend circumstance, or maybe what Christians would call God's will, allowed me to be a private, seemingly socially acceptable orphan for all of my life until then. It all unraveled. All the functional addicts were no longer functional. I became a 17-year-old alone in capitalism. A young woman with a high tolerance for mistreatment and no self-esteem to speak of in the capitalist world after a natural disaster that shook the nation. There were so many people who wanted to help me, and the only predators I had known until then had acted overtly and aggressively. I didn't know how to spot the wolves in sheep's clothing then. It would take years and a handful of hard lessons to spot those for me. To this day, I prefer the overt ones. Keeps it simple. You stayed in touch, kind of. You were a single mother of 2 girls working on a teacher's salary with second jobs. You had a lot. You checked on me. In 2006, it occurred to you to come see where and how I was living. I was so scared. There were no appliances in all the city of New Orleans, as you very well know. Everything was on back order for a year or more. Even those who didn't flood could not salvage 2 months' worth of mold that had flourished in a powerless New Orleans swamp during late August. That mold conquered even the most expensive stainless steel Frigidaires. I was lucky. Someone who knew someone who cared about me gave me a mini fridge. You came. You looked inside, and there was nothing. You did not shame me as my mother would have. You were not viscerally disgusted in my failure here. You realized no one had taught me how to make groceries before. This is what we say in New Orleans, make groceries, making groceries. No one buys groceries. You can Google it. It's this weird dialectical thing we participate in and have participated in willingly for over a century, all the while knowing and loving that we are wrong. That's New Orleans in a nutshell to me. Yes, we know we are wrong. We are enjoying it. You're welcome to play along, but also feel free to get the fuck out. We do not wish to be corrected or assimilate into your nothingness of Americana culture. I had no food. You had no money. You asked if you could take me to Whole Foods. I agreed. You taught me a most basic thing that had escaped me. I could survive drug addiction and abuse and natural disasters, but I could not budget or find oatmeal. I could lie to get a lease approval and get an apartment on my own at the age of 17. I could lie on job applications and make money, but I had no idea how to open a bank account. Using this language I spoke of before, you came in, you saw what I wanted no one to see, thanks to pride and shame, what a coin, and you helped it without touching the pride or the shame. What an art. I had no one, which was not new, but Katrina ripped the circumstance and illusion away, leaving me in the middle of a rapidly deteriorating bridge with no lifelines. Somehow I was so much safer in countless ways than I had ever been, and in other ways I was in more danger than I had ever seen before. I made groceries at Whole Foods with you for the first time. You with no money and doing it anyway. Me with no dignity, but for the first time, telling the truth and accepting help. I love you. I love this language of the survivor, but I hate that it exists. I'm proudly fluent in it now. I know its worth. I know the preciousness, the godliness. I have seen God in a mini fridge, in an apartment in a terrible neighborhood that had all the street signs blown away by the winds. They wouldn't return for 2 years, but that's New Orleans. We are wrong. We are underfunded. We are corrupt. It is all okay. We have fun. We have no interest in any other ways of life. We make groceries. With love, and I hope you're proud that I am okay. You helped. Allison. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Allison, for sharing that story. We're just gonna keep going. We've been talking a lot, so we're just gonna not do that. We're just gonna keep going. Next up is Lucid Dreams with a Z, written by Tiffany, and read by Frances Wynn. Please clap for her.
Lucid dreams. Can you hear me? But I don't know how to lift it, so I'll just lean in. Okay. Lucid dreams. Have you ever heard of lucid dreaming? For a while, it was the latest thing I was trying out. It's where you realize that you're dreaming while you're dreaming, and then you can control what happens and do really cool shit. A lot of people use it to fly. Artists use it to inspire their work. People say you spend a third of your life sleeping, and with lucid dreaming, you get more of that time back. My best friend Stacy and I were mid-flight at the beginning of a 2-week Euro trip to kick off our summer vacation from teaching, and I was explaining this latest obsession of mine. We would start in Sweden and end in London. I was about to have the time of my life, and here I was, talking about sleep. Have you heard of teacher tired? It's how teachers can sleep until 2 p.m. every day, as soon as any school vacation hits. The only way to fight teacher tired is flooding yourself with the endorphins of a debt-inducing vacation halfway around the world. Stacy was actually curious about lucid dreaming, to my surprise, and started asking me questions about how to do it. To trigger a lucid dream, you need to have a way to realize you aren't in reality. So you pick something called a dream totem. I started telling Stacy all the different totems I knew of. For example, you can look at your hand. If you have 5 fingers, you are probably in reality. But if you have 4 or 6, you're dreaming. When you realize you're dreaming is when you can start doing all those things that you couldn't or wouldn't do in reality. It's like the top in the movie Inception. If you spin a top and it keeps spinning, you're in a dream. Another common one is time. You can check a clock and see if the numbers are real. Like if you see 666, you're dreaming. Or the numbers or hands on a clock might spin quickly. The trick with any totem is to use it several times a day so that it becomes so much of a habit that you will hopefully do it in your dream. You should always do a reality check when something in your life is out of the ordinary. Sitting beside her on the plane, I raised my hand and examined my fingers, stretching them apart. I flipped my hand over to look at my palm and flipped it back over again. Nope, 5 fingers. This isn't a dream, I say, modeling to her how you might use a totem in real life. Tap, tap. Stacy tapped the Fitbit on her wrist to wake it up and check the time. She flipped her wrist over to turn the watch face away from her and aggressively flipped it back over to check the time again. Not a dream, she mimicked. She decided that since she always wears the Fitbit, it would be an easy totem for her. We both agreed to remind each other throughout the trip to practice using our totems when things got weird, which we were sure things would. Stacy quickly changed the topic and asked if I had found us a place to stay in Malmo, the second destination of our trip. Not yet. But don't worry, I'm getting close, I said, trying to sound convincing. Stacy had done the majority of the planning and booking hostels for our trip, as usual. A few weeks earlier, while planning our trip itinerary using the trusty travel planning app, Pinterest, we saw a headline that read, "This amazing bridge turns into an underwater tunnel connecting Sweden and Denmark." The picture shows a bridge that appears to dead end in the middle of the ocean on a small island where it dips fully underwater into the sea. Pinned. We figured this would probably be the one time in our lives we'd be in Sweden. We had to experience this. So we tagged this small city of Malmo onto our trip. Stacy is the type of traveler who creates a full itinerary in Google Docs, complete with all travel logistics and estimated costs. She will link a map of the location with all the points of interest that she'd like to see, and color codes blocks of time with titles like "Eat breakfast at Cute Cafe," "Sightseeing at Town Square," "Shopping at Shopping District." I'm the type of traveler who books flights and nothing else. I use apps like Hotel Tonight to find last-minute vacancies when you need to figure this out before we get to Sweden. I'm on it, I state assuredly. I grabbed my phone out of the front seat pocket and slouched down, keeping my elbows tucked in so I wouldn't touch my neighbor to my left. He had been asleep from the moment we took off. Maybe he was teacher tired too. I opened my couch surfing app and typed in Malmo, Sweden. I discreetly turned my phone screen towards my sleeping neighbor so Stacy can't see what I'm doing. My budget was already blown for this trip and we hadn't even arrived yet. I needed to find a cheap, reliable place to stay in Malmo and somehow convince Stacy that it would be safe. I realized I was going to try to convince Stacy to couch surf in another country. I'd probably need to introduce the idea sooner rather than later. Hey, what do you think about couch surfing in Malmo? I asked. There aren't really any hostels and everything looks pretty expensive. This wasn't entirely a lie. I had done a quick search on hostel worlds, which had turned up 0 results. I don't know, replied Stacy with hesitation. I'm not entirely against it, but you think we can really be sure that we would be somewhere to stay? How do you know the host won't flake? We need to find a place soon. I knew it. She didn't like the idea, but she didn't shoot it down as fervently as I thought she would. I told her I'd send out a few messages and make sure we got a commitment. I'd also have a backup plan for us in case it fell through. I wanted to prove that I was a reliable travel partner and to make her see how fun traveling with me could be. While Stacy is type A when it comes to making a travel itinerary, she also is the friend who will try anything twice. I started scrolling and found Ludwig. He was our age, slightly older, and had a full profile. He said he had gained so much from the community and wanted to give back as a host. I saw that he was a teacher at a college. Perfect! That must mean he'd be reliable and safe. I messaged him immediately, and to my surprise, he messaged back a few hours later and said he would host us.
I showed Stacy Ludwig's profile and all the messages between us. Stacy grabbed my phone and read through everything. Okay, she said, handing my phone back. I trust you. A few days later, we arrived and met up with our couchsurfing host. He walked us around and took us to a spot with burgers and milkshakes. He seemed totally cool and normal. We told him that we would take a train to Copenhagen the next day and asked what we should do there. He told us to visit a place called Christiania. Christiania is an area within Copenhagen, Denmark, that was founded by squatters in the 70s. Ludwig told us it would be a great place to stroll about, see some interesting murals and sculptures, and if we wanted to, legally buy and consume pot. He told us the history of Pusher Street Weed Market. Weed is not legal in the rest of Copenhagen, only in this district. This did not show up in our Pinterest search. The next day, we took that train. In case you were wondering, it did not live up to our expectations. We checked into our hostel, dropped our bags, and quickly left for Christiania, our only plan for our less than 24-hour stay in Denmark. The walk there was a great way to see the city. We didn't have phone service, so we took a direct route, following blue dots on our Google map that Stacy set on her phone back at the hostel to make sure we didn't get lost. We stopped at a couple of bridges to take pictures together. Stacy kept telling me to change angles and put my arm a different way so it didn't look fat. What? She always says. I know you won't like this picture. I'm just helping you out. When we arrived at Christiania, we were greeted by a sign that read, Dear friends, there are 3 rules in the green light district. Have fun. Don't run. It causes panic. No photos. Buying and selling hash is still illegal. It took us a while to wind around to Pusher Street. Stall operators had on black ski masks and gloves to hide their identity. Many stalls even had camouflage netting hanging over the fronts. And push they did. We couldn't walk 2 feet without being offered every type of hash imaginable. Men were competing for our attention, telling us that they had the best deals and telling us why their product was better than the next person's. Stacy bought us 3 small cookies. I have never done edibles before. You probably know where this is going. She broke one of the cookies in half and we each ate a piece. About 15 minutes of walking later, Stacy asked me if I felt anything. Nope, nothing, I said. She pulled out the cookie and said she thought we'd be safe to have one more. We would just have another quarter each. We spotted a smoothie truck, and we were both out of cash from our purchase. We had to leave the area to walk around and find an ATM without changing our saved map from the hostel. Stacy was really surprised when we got back that we still weren't high. So we ate another piece. You definitely know where this is going. We order our smoothies and sit down to wait. We sit in silence, both staring straight forward at the yellow truck. I'm really high, Stacy says. I am really high, too, I said, equally scared and relieved I wasn't the only one. Tap, tap. Stacy tapped her watch. She flipped her watch aggressively away from her and flipped it back over to check the time, just like we had practiced. I laughed to myself. That's funny. I know what she's doing. She's using her totem. She is high and wants to check reality. That is smart. Stacy is already better at lucid dreaming than I am. It's a really wrong time, she says in a scared and serious voice. Don't fuck with me, I snap back, half smiling because I know that she's trying to freak me out. No, I'm serious, she says stoically. She flips her wrist back and forth. I take a deep breath and tell myself I have not just entered another dimension, that I am just really high. Oh, never mind, she laughs, sounding reassured. I looked at it wrong. But I have already started spiraling. Was she actually looking at her watch wrong? Or did she just say that so I won't freak out? Even if the time is right on her watch now, did she actually see the wrong time when she first looked? This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. I am in a lucid dream. but I'm not. I'm just really, really high. Did I fall asleep on the train or on the picnic bench? Stacy suggested we find a spot to sit that was less crowded. We walked over to a bench that overlooked a pond and watched ducks pass by. Not long after, Stacy said I was making her uncomfortable because I was bouncing my legs incessantly. I tried to stay still, but moving was the only way to keep the nerves in my body and not in my mind. Stacy told me to think happy thoughts, but ultimately decided we need to get up and walk back to our hostel. I didn't want to move. You can take a nap, sleep it off, she said. You'll feel so good and you'll have really nice dreams. How does one fall asleep if they are already asleep? Does falling asleep while already being asleep mean you actually die? A whole new wave of terror ensued. The whole walk back, I created my own test to find out if I was in reality or asleep. Fuck totems! What shoes am I wearing today? I asked myself as I kept my head up, forcing myself not to look down at my feet as I tried to recall. Olive Steve Madden slip-on sneakers. I looked down. Great, I was. We were crossing way more bridges than I remembered. Weren't there only 3 on the way? This had to be the 7th bridge! I asked Stacy if we were walking in circles, and she showed me the blue dots that we needed to follow. She tried again to help me think good thoughts by telling me hers. Like right now, I feel like a quilt is wrapped over me. The quilt is made from good memories of everyone that I've ever met, and it is so warm. I can hear her smiling. I'm envious. If I keep walking straight, will the person walking toward me move? Or they walk right into me? If I am in reality, they will move. But if I am asleep, they won't. I should try walking straight into that person. I probably shouldn't walk straight into that person. If this is real, that would be a really bad idea. Hey, I think you should put your sunglasses on, Stacy told me in a judgy voice. The same one she used earlier when we were posing for pictures. Why do I need to put my sunglasses on? Do my eyes look really messed up? How can she even see my eyes? She's walking beside me. The entire way, I kept trying to familiarize myself with my surroundings, to talk myself out of believing I was in a dream, which is impossible to do in a city that I have been in only for a few hours. We get back to our hostel and head to our room. I lay down in my bed and Stacy crawls up on her bunk. There are a couple guys in the room. I am pretty sure that I'm actually in hospital room, and those are the doctors. Did I get so high that Stacy had to take me to a hospital? I'm not sure it's a good idea to sleep, I say to Stacy with my eyes already closed, my last-ditch effort to save myself. Go to sleep, she urges. You'll feel so much better. Thanks for getting us back, I say, thinking that if I am really just high, how incredible it is that Stacy was also that high, but also somehow got us back. I'm lying there, thinking about how much I admire Stacy, and how lucky I am for our friendship. The blanket on me feels like the quilt of memories that we are currently making together. I literally trust her with my life, I realize. And if I am already asleep, at least I am already in the hospital, so I probably won't die. I try to resist, but I feel so warm that I give in, and I sleep the entire rest of our one day in Copenhagen. I don't lucid dream, and it feels so damn good.
Drugs. Sex, drugs. We accept stories about all the things. And we've come to our final story. A couple things before we go. Number one, me and Emily are going to come back on again after the last story, and this next story is going to make you laugh forever. And that's great. But just just want to let you know that we're going to come back together at the end and like really close this out. I did also want to say before this next story, the person who wrote this story, I asked him to write a Grown Up Storytime story 6 years ago. I checked. I'm a librarian. I know things. So all that's to say is, if I asked you to write a story at all during this time we've been together here, you've run out of time to hear it at Rudyard's. But you will hear it potentially. If you, first of all, send in your stories. grownupstorytimehouston@gmail.com. We want your stories. I'm going to save the venue for the next thing. We're also going to have Miles come up to read, and not only is he one of my favorite trivia players at my trivia game, which is this coming Monday, shameless plug, Little Dipper, great trivia, but he also, he's an old-time Storytime reader as well. So give it up for Miles. We're going to do The Best Buy by Zach Dixon, read by Miles McMahon.
The Best Buy story. Growing up, you learn most of the things you know from somebody else. From Mom, you learn to tie your shoes, and Dad, making the perfect omelet. Miss Walker held it down with your second grade times tables, and Coach DeBose taught you spades during your summer of driver's ed. But no one sat you down and explained how to masturbate. Let's be more precise. Raised in the small hometown of school prayer phenomenon, see you at the pole, and attending church 5 times a week, no one even mentions masturbation, much less takes the time to mentor you on the finer points of its mastery. That's a pun. Kids these days might have unfettered access to high-speed internet, but you, a geriatric born in the Reagan administration, you just had to figure that shit out on your own. I should stop saying you. I was 13 discovering that I had a body. Between weightlifting and the first traces of armpit hair, 7th grade was a year ripe with the expansion and exploration of this meat sack we call an anatomy. In a single day, I moved from building forts and playing in the creek with my buddies toward the nightly ritual of tamping down my BO with an entire can of Axe body spray. One afternoon, I was hanging out at Spencer Menken's house when his dad told us he needed to go shop for a new computer and invited me to come along. Before I knew it, we were driving to Best Buy on the hunt for a new PC with an unimaginably large 8-gigabyte hard drive. I know. Mr. Menken wasn't exactly a fast shopper. His acute, specific questions quickly bored me and Spencer, leading us to mosey on over to the CD section and see which albums they had in stock. Our families were Baptist, but Spencer's parents were a little freer than mine in allowing him to indulge in secular music. He quickly gravitated towards Matchbox 20, Three Doors Down, and Creed, whereas I took a much keener interest in finally glimpsing some of the album covers I'd begun ogling and the ads of the Sunday paper. You see, in our Southern Baptist home, there wasn't a lot of material sitting around waiting to inspire arousal. I had to wait for the Sunday ads to fill the portals of my imagination. But doing so required me to be tactical. Diving straight into the wall-to-wall displays of bra models in the dealer's pages would have been too obvious for my mother, so I settled for the CD page in the Best Buy foldout. Each album cover they showed might have been a half-inch square, but even at that size, the late 90s faces of Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Janine Lindenholder. The Nurse on Blink-182's I Don't Know What to Say. Yeah, I know! Set up fireworks in my hormone-drenched lizard brain. My odds-on favorite, however, was the debut studio album of Jennifer Lopez, On the Six. I could look at that picture for hours. Had anyone in my exceedingly Caucasian suburb Hamlet allowed me to watch the movie Selena, I probably would have had a seizure. But now I was here at Best Buy, admiring the full-size faces of the bubblegum pop princesses like a dog who got the car. There they all were, Brittany and Christina, Mandy Moore, even Jessica Simpson. Still, none of them could match the forbidden apple of my eye, the incomparable J-Lo. With trembling hands, I reached for On the Six, finally admiring her smoldering look in that 6-inch by 5-inch jewel case. There's no other way to describe what happened. My mind ceded its executive function to a different head altogether. I decided it would be a good idea to take that CD to the bathroom for some personal business. Of course, I'd seen the signs before. No merchandise in the bathroom! But it was not like I was stealing the album. It'd be back on the shelf in just a few minutes, and I figured no one would miss it because there were 2 more in stock. I tucked the CD into the waistband of my basketball shorts, draped my shirt over it, and strided towards the restroom like a man on a mission. A manager gave me a few extra seconds of eye contact from the TV corner, but I didn't think too much of it. Into the bathroom, and the middle stall I went, setting sail on a DIY pleasure cruise. But no sooner had I pulled the yacht back into the dock than I was hit with a heavy dose of post-nut clarity. We've all been there. The shame monster and I had been well acquainted since my first orgasm at the age of 10. I'd been sitting in the bathroom admiring a TV Guide cover featuring Buffy's 2nd season when I noticed that I could no longer pee directly into the toilet. I'll spare you the salacious details, but suffice it to say that my nascent libido took a mere 30 seconds to improvise its way into the purest ecstasy my little decade-old self had ever known. Of course, no sooner had I crossed the threshold of heaven than a wall of shame popped up and informed me I was bound for hell. Oh crap, I thought. If I walk out of here holding the TV Guide, everyone will know what I did. Already I could see the resignation in my mother's eyes. My father's vowed to kill me and make another that looked just like me. It was too much to handle. I had to destroy the evidence. Savvy enough to know the trash can would have been a dead giveaway. My desperation alchemized into inspiration when I discovered that the bottom left of my cabinet under my sink concealed about an inch gap between the baseboard and the cabinet, creating an unseen hiding space, perfect for felony-level evidence tampering. I pushed the week's television listings into the void, scrubbed my hands of the sinful filth, headed back toward the living room, and began the all-too-regular cycle of desire, divinity, and destruction. Anytime I began to feel too guilty with the material, I push it past the baseboard, never to be seen again. I filled that space with material. Even to this day, I think at least once a week about everything I hid beneath the sink in that house and wonder if the people living there ever decided to remodel and discover my spank trove. But even if I dealt with the refractory shame before, this more public bout, we're back to Best Buy. This more public bout in the Best Buy bathroom smacked me across the face like a haymaker from Tyson. What the heck, Zach? This is weird. I heard some other men in the bathroom. Had they heard me? Did they know what I had done? I cleaned up, returned the CD to my waistband, gathered my breath, and emerged from the stall to wash my hands. Standing by the sink were 2 Best Buy employees. One, the manager from before. They quietly stared me down the entire time I stood at the sink, and I didn't stand up well to pressure. Oh shit, I told myself, I have to get this thing back to the shelf. Exiting the bathroom, my fear got the better of me, and I took off in the music section at a sprint. Slowing for the turn into the pop aisle, I managed to slide the CD back in its slot in a single motion. Home free. Thought as I rounded the corner. I felt a double tap on my right shoulder. Excuse me, young man, said the yellow-shirted head of security for Best Buy, holding the album I thought I'd so slipply dispatched in his hands. Come to me, you and I are going to have a little talk. The security office was really a closet, maybe 5 by 10, its quarters all the more cramped because, in addition to the yellow shirt guy, about 4 other employees filled in there as well. There were the 2 men from the bathroom and a couple of pimply-faced minimum wagers who'd clearly been summoned to goose the numbers and sweat out my confession. I sat in the corner and awaited my interrogation. So, please explain to us why you were trying to steal our merchandise, yellow shirt guy began. Steal? I wasn't trying to... Oh, shit. Oh, wait, no. This immediately proved to be a quandary. Is it better to get in trouble for stealing or for what I actually did? I'd heard of thieves going to prison before, but I wasn't sure what the punishment for public indecency was, but it couldn't be good. I settled for stalling for time. I wasn't stealing, sir, I said. Come on, kid, the blue shirt manager sighed. We were in the bathroom with you. You were obviously trying to remove the plastic in there. You promised I wasn't stealing, I said. Yellow shirt looked amused. Well, if you weren't stealing, he said, you think you get it right in us? What exactly were you trying to do? I can't say, I said. The stall couldn't last much longer. This is ridiculous, Blue Shirt said. You are stealing, kid. We're going to press charges. I'm about 10 seconds away from calling the cops. I can feel my heart pounding. The chickens of my sexual misdeeds had finally come to roost. A cold sweat covered my forehead. I peered at the speckled gray carpet and mumbled out the truth in a whisper. What was that, kid? We couldn't hear you. Nearly in tears now. Well, I wasn't stealing. I was rude. All 4 of the non-security guys immediately looked to the ceiling. The 2 teenagers tried to stifle their laughter, and Yellow Shirt's head went into his hands. We aren't needed here, the manager said, and the 4 of them filed out, leaving poor Yellow Shirt to deal with my humiliation. He sighed hard and grabbed a clipboard. Well, kid, I need to write a statement about what happened, but be thorough. I wrote a full page that was entirely too detailed. Chock full of phrases like, chock full of phrases like, and then I sat on the toilet and began to masturbate to Jennifer, and immediately after ejaculating, it read like someone had used Mad Libs to fill out an arrest report. Yellow Shirt explained to me that I would be banned from every Best Buy in the country for 5 years. But I think he'd tell it was an afterthought compared to the punishment I was heaping upon myself because he tried to stop me below. Look, kid, it's not like you can't buy groceries. It's only Best Buy. There's always Circuit City. They brought in Mr. Mankin to read my statement before releasing me to his custody. Dumbfounded, he could only stammer out, guess you aren't getting a computer tonight. The rest of my evening was spent sandwiched between my parents on the couch, forced to read aloud from scriptures excoriating sexual immorality, stopping only for regular interruptions to get berated by my father. At one point, he even pulled out the newspaper to have me read from the list of locally reported sex offenders, telling me that I was exactly this kind of person, and that in a better world I would be forced to report my transgressions door to door through the entire neighborhood. In the end, he settled for a more subtle humiliation. My handwritten confession would be displayed next to our primary landline in the kitchen for the next 4 months. Anytime anyone came over, my friends, my parents' Bible study, all the guests at my brother's birthday party, I had to hold back vomit from anxiety. If my parents ever found that I had moved it or turned it over, they forced me to put it back in place so that anyone visiting the house, including the Terminex guy, once got laughing at it and knew exactly what kind of scum I was. A few years back, my parents were moving houses when I came up for a visit, which meant my mother had pulled out all sorts of photo albums, home videos to take a trip down memory lane. At the end of the weekend, as I was loading up my car, my dad pulled me aside. Zach, I've been clearing out some things in my office, and I want you to know, I found the statement you wrote for Best Buy. I cackled. Wait, really? Where is it? Can I see it? He looked appalled. There's nothing funny about that. Why would you laugh at a story like that? No, I decided to throw it away. Enough time has passed. Thanks.
And that's our show, but we have a few more things to tell you.
Five things.
Five. We've made a list. It's gonna be quick. First of all, I messed up on part of the program. Neo Benchy is back. That's true, and that's good news. It's not on Thursday though. It's on the 4th Tuesday.
Also, so like grown-up story time is where other people write stories and then other people read them. Neo Benchy is where other people made film and then other people came up with new dialogue for that film. It's fucking great. It's so good. So you should come.
Yeah, but on Tuesday, not on Thursday. The 4th Tuesday. What was the next thing?
Bingo.
Oh yeah, okay, back to the bingo. We would just want to know, like who got bingo. So, who got one row of bingo? Please clap. Did anyone who got no bingo? Okay. Did anyone get 2 rows of bingo? Yay! Anyone get 3 rows of bingo? There we go, Joe. Okay. I almost got blackout.
What year was the pool table upstairs?
Oh, when did they take the pool table out? That was
It was a long time ago.
5 years ago?
It was our merch
It
table.
was the
for a minute.
downstairs table, but there wasn't enough.
There were 2 pool tables up here that we used for merch. And they took.
Oh. Yeah.
Anyways, it was years ago.
Yeah. Third is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. As we reflect, as we mentioned earlier, we've celebrated a lot of things here together. We've celebrated love. We've had a marriage proposal at Grown Storytime. And on the flip side, we've also had loss, as we mentioned. Punk Rock Stacey's no longer with us. One of our founding members, Tim, is no longer with us. And just this past year, we lost another person who was very integral and important to Bootown, which was our theater company that is no more, but to Grown Up Storytime as well, Austin Havocan. He left us this year. If you came to Grown Up Storytime in the before times, he was always in this corner, set up with his camera. A huge part of why we have any archival record of anything. There's so many things that are hard about running nonprofits and arts. One of them is just record keeping, and there's so much that gets lost to time because it's not prioritized, and we're so lucky to have had someone that cared enough to want to do that. So we just want to raise a glass to Austin and thank him and remember him tonight. So thank you, Austin. Cheers.
But we also have someone who is here who we want to honor, and that's our sound guy, Joe. Joe! I was wondering, was there going to be a cue? What happened? Joe cares so much about Storytime, y'all, and everything that he does. But I really have loved being able to just have someone who is so passionate on our team. Even though you don't pick stories, you make them sound good. So here's raising a glass to Joe. Cheers, man. Let me sip.
Joe has been at every story time, probably. Have you missed any? You have. Okay, never mind. I take it back.
Twice! Oh, only twice!
I think I've missed more story times than that, so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that I have no transition from that. Other than just a quick reminder, we are going to stay here for a little bit to sell merch. In case you wanted to do that, we're going to do that. We'll stay a little bit. We also hope you'll join us downstairs. But before that, I think we should probably tell you where to come see us next month, because it will be the same time and the same third Tuesday of the month. Emily, this is yours. No. Emily's been here since the beginning. Cheers to fucking Emily, y'all. How did only a live girl on this began? Like, she was actually running it and maybe posting. I have no idea who did that, but
I don't know either.
but Emily, where we go? Where can they find us?
We're going to Continental Club.
Starting in July, it'll still be every third Tuesday, it'll still be at 8 p.m. All social media, everything's the same, but just come see us at Continental Club. We'll be posting more, we'll be posting about parking and how to get there, where to get food, etc. You know, it's a dinner and a show kind of thing. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Rudyard's for having us for all these years. Thank you to Joe and Lilia and Mike and Stacy and all of our bartenders here and Blake for having us. And thank you to all of you for being here. We hope to see you at one of our future shows soon, next month.
There we go. Cheers, y'all.
Thank you.